Do you have those lovely gray wood floors in your home and you're absolutely stumped as to which paint colors you should use on the walls? Well, in today's video, I'm going to solve this conundrum for you. I got 7 different paint colors by Sherwin-Williams that I picked out for gray floors. Whether you're working with engineered hardwood, laminate, vinyl, or tile, if you want to jump straight into the paint colors, you can click on this time code. Because I get it, time is money, honey. But I really want to explain the thought process that went into these choices. And it's because it can hopefully help you make your own color decisions in the future that are different than mine. Coordinating a paint color with your gray floors is tricky. If you know gray, you know that no gray is created equal. You have varying levels of depth or darkness, color temperature, undertones. So when I'm looking at a paint color to coordinate with my gray floors, one of the most important things I try to prioritize is contrast, whether that comes from depth or color. One of my big pet peeves is when someone picks a gray for their walls that nearly matches their floor colors, because everything is just gonna blend into one another and it's not gonna really make an interesting looking space. It's really important to establish a bit of a difference between your floors and your walls in order to create a more visually distinct look. The first thing you need to figure out is what's going on with your floors. Does it seem like it's a lighter gray floor or a darker one? Does it have any noticeable color hue like red, green, or purple? Or is it pretty desaturated and very much grayscale? You want to at least be aware of these differences because it's going to directly impact how your wall color will look. I think the simple alternative is to pick a paint color that has some saturation. Don't try and figure out what kind of gray your floor is. Just pick something other than gray, so you don't have your colors clashing with one another. I want to get straight into these paint colors now, and I have 7 Sherwin-Williams options for you that are meant to be different enough from most gray floors out there. The idea is to go with something that is different from what you have so they don't blend in, because you probably don't want that. The first color is going to be Snowbound, which has some very light gray quality to it, but it's also incorporating a touch of brown as well to warm it up a tad. A color like this probably shares undertones to certain floorings out there, but because it's so darn light, you'll have an easy time finding contrast between your walls and your floors. Its LRV is 83, which is quite light, but it still gives it enough opportunity for the really bright whites to stand out against it. Easy choice if you want something clean, effortless, and airy. The second color option is one that perhaps will be a tad complementary because instead of having brown undertones, there's a clear gray-blue quality to it, and it's called Clean Slate. I mean, with a name like that, how can you go wrong? So we have another minimalist color choice here, although it has a 76 LRV. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about when I say LRV, it just stands for light reflectance value. The higher the number, the lighter the color. So comparing this color to Snowbound, a handful of points darker. But what you're really getting here is a muted, fresh, powdery blue to offer something a little bit different. I wouldn't say it's a very saturated color, but that blue undertone will be visible, so it would be a great option for the rooms that you want to veer off of those warmer neutrals. It's really gonna pop off and feel really fresh. The third color is a similarly light color in SHOJI white, and it shares an LRV in the mid-70s range, but clearly has a very different undertone than the last color. We're going from blue to beige, although both still have that touch of gray to tone both colors down. SHOJI white is just a bit darker than Clean Slate, but its warmth makes it arguably more versatile as it naturally suits gray, and more specifically taupes and brown better than blue. What I mean by that is even though your floors are gray, there's a better chance of them containing more beige or brown compared to blue. So by opting for the warmer paint color, it's going to tone in a little bit easier. Easy may not be the objective with your paint color, but for those of you that just want something more straightforward, SHOJI white is a great option. As we start to get deeper and darker with our paint colors, I want to deviate even more from gray. And I do that by offering you a color like Filmy Green, which does have this toned down look to it, but its main color hue comes from a soft green, quite clearly. We're heading towards light mid-tone territory, and the green will be really accentuated by those gray floors of yours that sort of lean towards purple and red territory undertone wise. So if that's sort of what your floors are doing, then the red undertone in your floors and the green in this color are going to be complementary because they oppose each other on the color wheel. The color on its own is still pretty neutral, especially for a green, but it's making a subtle statement, more so than the other colors we've talked about. Not nearly as much as our next color though, which may be a bit too much for certain people, but I find it looks really striking in the right circumstances. I also think it has a really cool name. It's called Pink Shadow. The pink here is a bit more peachy, where you have pink, some orange, and then a bit of black to really deepen the whole color to an LRV of 58. Now, there aren't going to be a ton of people clamoring for peachy pink walls in their front foyer or other hallways, but in those strategic locations like bedrooms or even a living room, Pink Shadow could really add a bit of fun and some sleek exuberance to an otherwise monochromatic space. I know we talk about testing your colors quite a bit on this channel. This is a color you definitely want to test before pulling the painty trigger. And after that one, I really wanted to offer something a little more grounded and stable for the people that want something, you know, more neutral or, dare I say, gray leaning. I know I said no gray, but I have a bit of confidence with this color. We're sticking around that 57 LRV, which is still light enough to differentiate itself from most darker gray flooring. The color is called ALPACA, and the only reason it could work is because it leans a little more into taupe territory rather than a true gray. It introduces enough brown and some beige in the background to allow it to pop off the walls a little bit, but this is entirely dependent on the undertones in your flooring. So if you were here for the earlier part of the video where I talked about all that stuff, you'll know that some gray floors may have that same brown and beige coloration. If that's the case, then this is not the color for you. But for everyone else, this is a direction you can take your wall color in if you want something more toned down and subtle. Pretty much, you can go for this kind of color if your gray floors aren't this kind of color. What about if you want something that you would never mistake for a medium gray on your walls? Well, then you can go with one of the classic paint color options when dealing with gray wood floors, and that's navy blue. But not just any navy blue, because if you are the type of person that rocks those gray floors, maybe you're into the more undersaturated kind of dusty colors that exist. That's why I would recommend charcoal blue, which really is a dark blue with charcoal gray. So it's a great name by Sherwin. You'll definitely see the blue coming through pretty prominently, and it has this really dramatic touch that works with your flooring. It also helps tame a potential purple undertone that some floors can have, because charcoal blue has sort of that dark denim hint of purple, kind of, instead of the alternative, which is a green undertone, like this color right here by Sherwin. It's also kind of a navy blue, but much more greeny, so maybe that's more up your alley.